What I'm going to talk about this weekend is something already old. And some of you go back and remember my book, The Techniques of Astral Projection. I wrote it in the 1970s, and it was published and distributed. It had a hostile reception from the Theosophical Society, who called it astral nonsense. And it seemed to me to be astral nonsense to believe it possible to feed science with information that science could act upon. Well, that has been the case with regard to the sun. A little later than the 70s, science had been able to print the ultraviolet concept of the universe. In that picture, there was a dark spot there. You can examine it later, large size, and that dark spot brought to my mind that part of ancient wisdom which referred to the sun being a cool body. Not the surface of the sun, get this straight, not the surface of the sun, but it is a very ancient tradition that the important part of the sun, the core of the sun, is cool. And it implies incredibly that one day man will be able to walk on the core of the sun. Yes, so there's the original book, and it established all kinds of things, at least which could now be discussed, and that there is an astral world, and that the astral world is entered into almost certainly by every one of you every night. We call it dream life. We call it out-of-body experience, all kinds of new words coming to describe aspects of entering the astral world. But where is the astral world? Oh, it interpenetrates this world. True, but you're talking about astral worlds. What a fight it was to hold your face up as a doctor of medicine, as a university graduate, and maintain that there is a cool nature to the sun. What a struggle it is to be able to maintain that the astral world is a reality, that we enter into it, that we can meet dead friends there who are living still in the astral body. Scientific American has at last established that indeed there is an astral world which they are looking at and are calling black holes, all kinds of words, intrinsic brain experience. You'll see lots more scientific expressions for this. For the first time in theosophical history, science is beginning to admit that there is hidden worlds of dark matter, and Baker says dark matter is astral matter, and has been trying to persuade them that the emotional energies of humanity, whether they are expressed in dream form or in subtler experiences in which we are given out-of-body experiences in subtler bodies, that this world is a reality. And there it is. Science is calling it dark matter, and Baker is calling it astral matter, emotional matter that we've been living with for thousands of years and creating in our BBC studios to create emotional scenery that can be filmed of couples divided, shouting at each other, screaming at each other. Yes. Dark energy is mental matter. Dark energy is mental matter, and dark matter is astral matter. And I have had to force that. I've had to sit at this and other desks around the world and said, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's what science says. This is gas, liquid, and solid. We can see it, we can touch it, we can apprehend it, and it represents about 4 to 6% of what is known of our universe. The rest is unknown. There's dark energy and dark matter, which science gives the terminology to. They don't know. They've said it for 30 years. They've taught it in schools. We don't know what most of the universe is. Baker says it is mental energy and astral matter. Matter, why? Because it is apprehended by us. We have sensory equipment for being able to dream it, for being able to live in it, for the period at least of sleep, or perhaps even longer. And so there has been this struggle. And one of the contentions is that we can travel inside dark matter, and it's known as astral projection. And there's the book, The Authority on it, just as there are books called The Mental Body by Major Powell in Theosophy, and there is an astral body, also by Major Powell, books that have been studied for 50 years. But the ability to establish this fact so that science doesn't go on wasting money on telescopes and goodness knows what, when most of the information is known, and it's been known to Theosophy for 100 years or more. And there are books on it. Now, slowly, quietly, in science's own way, it is beginning to say silly things about what they've been teaching. Oh, they've said recently by a new scientist that there is a monster in the Milky Way which is chewing up stars. Yes, go and get the books yourselves. Magazines. Monsters are chewing up the stars. When in actual fact, nature is performing what it has performed for thousands of years. That there is a descending arc in which mental matter materializes into astral matter, and astral matter materializes into gas, liquid, solid. There it is. Mental matter materializing into astral matter. So how does science pick this up? Well, I'll show you. There's a great blob, or great blobs as big as the universe, of astral matter, an astral world, an astral plane, and there are books on it. And right in the middle of it, there is mental matter materializing into astral. So how does science see that with its big telescopes? How does it sees it as this? That's the outer edge of the blob, and in the center of it is mental matter, materializing into astral. So what do they conclude? It's a black hole. Can you see the black hole now? Well, they're having to see it because the mental matter is invisible. It depicts a vacuum. And so the subject of black holes is dealt with. And what are they saying now? Hidden worlds of dark matter. So, what is Baker here for? Baker is here to put them right about the states of matter out there in the universe, which the theosophists have known about for more than 100 years. But the purpose of Baker being taught how to astral project, then how to start projecting in different directions of the world, taking into account things like simple projection from here to the Eiffel Tower, simple projection from here across to friends I have met in Canada and the USA, taking about 7 to 9 seconds to cross the Atlantic by astral projection. He does it. Nobody takes the slightest notice in official areas, important people. The scientists go on, the money comes into the universities for research, and the milking goes on, and they're having to give it up now. So there are changes. But then Baker has to live out his life, crippled as it is. Baker has to live out his life. What is he going to do? What he's going to do is to have a look at some things from a human point of view, and using psychic as well as his university education, 4 universities, and try and understand what it is the scientists are struggling with and put them right. Ridiculous. Well, that's what he was given to do. And one of the things was that he had to astral project to places of importance to science. And one of them was the sun. And so I was taken in hand and taught how to travel enormous distances, 93 million miles, to some site of importance where they were fighting, the scientists were fighting over whether the sun was 30,000 degrees centigrade at its core, and just Baker and maybe 1 or 2 theosophists believing that it was cool. So I was put through all kinds of safety measures to see that this guy wasn't burnt to a frazzle or believed he was being burnt to a frazzle. And so I had experiences of fire. What kind of fire? Spiritual fire. And I have left behind a stack of diaries as high as that about my experiences of fire. Didn't know why, but they were given to me, and yes, I undertook and was able to sustain all kinds of things, like putting my hand in water that was freezing, turning to ice. Why? Because I was a returned soldier who had apparently recovered from post-traumatic stress disorder, shell shock. And they're still looking for some test of shell shock. And it involves, from my research point of view, finding out what to do to test whether a soldier returned is genuinely suffering from shell shock or putting it on to get the money. Terrible things. The first two books of my autobiography are extant, which means that they're here now, available. No, we're not trying to sell them, but they're here for inspection because they have been received by Her Majesty, and they have been acknowledged by Her Majesty, and she has sent from Buckingham Palace and also from Balmoral thank yous to the group, and you're all here, or a lot of you are here, who have fashioned these two books. I don't know of any author who has been given such an honor. The letters are here somewhere if you want to inspect them. But that means that she has advisors who do know and are open to and have read the books and the contents. You're here for your own inspection. You do it. We don't want to push it down your throats. We're just saying that the work is important and it's beginning to have effect. So what about the sun? You must do two things, Douglas. Firstly, you can project to the sun, and we will give you experiences there, even if they are symbolic, even if they are in astral form, they will be given you. But first of all, you have to give us proof that you can bear the journey to the sun. How the hell are they going to do that? Well, it happened in my life. And it happened at El Alamein. I am a survivor of El Alamein, the first battle that the Allies won. As Churchill said, we never won a battle until El Alamein, and we never lost one after El Alamein. But what was it for me? It was an incredible experience. The desert, and 1,000 guns firing to make a barrage for 250,000 men to undertake a bayonet charge. 250,000 men underneath, guns firing as fast as machine gun bullets. And so there developed a barrage which from my point of view, or from any soldier's point of view, of shells bursting for 23 miles, a great orb, which was the Battle of El Alamein. Why has it never been acknowledged? Why are all sorts of battles celebrated, but not El Alamein? I don't know fully why, but there's some reason behind it, and we don't know why. But the importance of the barrage was important to me because I was going to have a similar experience on the surface of the sun that I was going to be projected to. Well, all of you are going to have such an experience. Not one of you are going to escape. You will have your own externa. That's what we call them in psychology. Externa. Some vivid recall. Some experience, which will mean, yes, he's come through that. He's all right. He can bear that sort of thing. That sort of thing before it actually happens to him. So will you. You think you're going to go through initiations untested? Not on your Nelly. Whatever element you are responsive to, you will have an experience of it in reality, in a lifetime. And that experience, if you get through it, that experience will imprint on you, on your nature, that you are ready for that kind of initiation. We call them externa because they've never happened to people before. Let us take, for instance, the kind of thing I'm talking about. Let us suppose you are an Aborigine in Australia, and the Aborigine suddenly sees something out at sea, and it's approaching, and he's never seen anything like it before. It's a monster. Monster, monster, monster. They're Aborigines, these scientists, talking about a monster. And lo and behold, this Aborigine rushes down to the seashore because this thing that is coming is the white sails of Cook, was it? Captain Cook and his small fleet. They were approaching his shores. And he couldn't see this thing that he'd never seen before as anything but what was already in his brain, and he saw it as a monster with huge wings fluttering, coming into the seashore. We call that simply externa, plural. Externum, externa. You'll be lucky if you find it in the psychology books, but it's there. It means something that the brain has to see and must be accepted. Let me take you to Johannesburg, where I once lived. And Johannesburg would receive peasants from Zululand, from the Xhosa lands. And they would arrive in Johannesburg wrapped in a blanket, nothing else, just a blanket, stinking to high heaven, accepted as part of the deal. Yes, coming into Johannesburg to go to the mines, the gold mines. And there they would be put into barracks and sent down thousands of feet to dig the gold out. And arriving in Johannesburg, never ever having seen it before, houses going up and up and up and up, and skyscrapers. And not only that, but something worse. And what was worse was the traffic, the row of the traffic, the buses, the huge trucks that were going to carry them. They had to get into the truck and go to the mines. That's the kind of externa I'm talking about. Something that is traumatic, exciting, or something in your life which will, if you were esoteric, would warn you that the initiation you're going to have is going to show itself, first of all, as an event ordinarily in your life, and then something esoteric, something vivid, deep-reaching is going to happen to you, which will stamp on you the mark of initiation. And thenceforth you will have a grade of initiation. No, you don't need masters. They'll do it in such a way that it will be as vivid to you as this experience was for me. An externum. something absolutely, some people poach words. Edgar Mitchell talked of his externum as a samadhi. Everybody wants to know what is samadhi, what the Hindus talk about, sitting on the sides of the mountains of the Himalayas. What is it? I'm telling you now so that you can have the fortitude to face up to it. Sometimes it's an illness affecting the brain and its ability to accept energies, and you have to have a mental condition. I don't want to step into your shoes. You have to have it. But you will have to have externa, which will prepare you for the initiatory device, which will come from higher beings higher than man. I don't want to live on the planet if I can't accept the fact there are beings higher than me. I'll do whatever they want, but I must know that I am not standing in the place of somebody responsible for the whole damn earth. But part of it, yes. Service to humanity, yes. And my externa will point out to me where I can help, and this was one of the ways I was able to help. And so I'm going to describe to you, you can call it a vision, you can call it reality, you can call it what you like. It was my externa experience. And fortunately, I say fortunately, divine fortune, what did the Romans and the Greeks used to call their artists, who were inspired by something divine that would come to the artist and give him the inspiration to do the job? Muses, of course. It's you that are ignorant. It's you that are in a position to be responsible for humanity. Take it. No matter what the hurt, it's a challenge to you. Are you ready for the externa that will help you take initiation? The Alamein experience of the barrage, 1,000 guns, spread over 23 miles, so that there was a disk of exploding shells above me. There's the moon, 23rd of October 1942, which will be repeated next Saturday, in which the moon will be the same as that one. It will be in Syzygy. The moon, the earth, the sun, exactly in line for a brief few seconds, but an energy called quantum equivalence. The energy of quantum equivalence will reciprocate what was there. The important part of that was not just the shells and the arc that it formed. The importance there was that there were 250,000 Allied soldiers with fixed bayonets in a long line, 23 miles long, waiting to charge the Germans, the last of the Germans, to kick them out of Africa and make sure that they never try and get through the Middle East again. Well, we're going to try and divert the coming Syzygy next week, Saturday, to a peace effort. So there you have it. This Syzygy, that's what it's all about. I had another experience like that which confirmed this one. I came back from the war and I wanted to find something that I could do, considering my condition, and which I could meet this challenge of having a soul that could feed me with something that I needed energy-wise, fire. That's my element. And something that would be helpful to my spiritual growth and what I had just joined the Theosophical Society, who had told me about the path. I was in business. I had a printing works, and it drove me nearly mad, as Richard, my student here, will tell you. Printing is not a nice, easy profession. It's a hell of a profession. Anyway, I had this, and I sickened of it. I sickened of the business tactics that I had to use in order to survive. I hated the residence I had taken up, a posh flat in Kenilworth, Cape Town. And so I went into the desert around Cape Town. It's called Philippi. And I took up occupation of a bungalow, not a particularly good one, but it was suitable. And I moved in alone. I was out in a desert. After a few days, I came to realize that the sun would rise every morning out of the sea, which was at the water edge of the desert. And so I would sit and wait for the sun round about 6 o'clock in the morning to rise. And this sort of thing began to develop in me. I would watch the sun, red gold, rising out of the water, and watch it and meditate, or struggle to meditate. Something would happen, because when I came down from the sand dune, I was energized. I had all kinds of things I wanted to do, and one of them was to become a doctor of medicine so that I could help poor humanity. And I went to college, Cape Town University, and became a doctor. But for those months in which I was able to get up early in the morning, climb the sand dune, and look out eastwards across the bay, Cape Town Bay, to the rising sun. And it was gorgeous. And it brought to my mind this huge orb of red gold. And I grew to love it, and I found that even when I wasn't anywhere near the water's edge or the desert, I could visualize it here. I knew what to put there, because I'd done it again and again and again and again, so that it was visually part of an externa that I was building. And so that exercise that I undertook absolutely as a novice became part of me. And I began to realize that it acted as a sort of a lens. And the lens, somehow or the other, took hold of my will and determination and gave it power, so that I could get through the filth and the glory of being a medical student. The filth being 100 corpses, and for each of us to form a little group and have a corpse to dissect. And they always stank, of course, and so on and so on and so on. Who were they? You began to pick up things from the corpses. They were a tribe who had employed black magic on kids way, way out in the tribal areas. And they had cut pieces off of kids and used them to make themselves strong. That sort of thing meant that I was being subjected to possible experiences by virtue of what I'd chosen to do for mankind. And so there was this experience of the sun acting as a lens to focus the fire into my brain, as it were. Read it for yourselves, it's all recorded. And so when I knew that I was to undertake this extraordinary astral projection, which was to go to the sun and have a good look at it and see what it was so that I could describe it to our scientists with their telescopes, I decided what measures I would take for it. And I trained. And when I was undertaking some long journey, there was always the knowledge that there was a silent watcher accompanying me, so that I need never fear. It's your entitlement as well. You can play around with material things on this planet, but in the end you will come back again and again and again until you use up the challenges which the planet is going to offer you in the lifetime.